Have you ever, like, look at someone else's life? Maybe you're just scrolling through social media on the couch or
Oh, constantly.
right, or you're watching a coworker just absolutely nail a presentation that you were frankly terrified of giving.
Yeah, that's the worst one.
And you immediately feel this like heavy, visceral pit of inadequacy just drop right into your stomach.
No, it's a terrible feeling.
It really is. Well, today on the deep dive, we are looking at the exact architecture of that feeling.
We are going deep into this one.
We really are. We're going to figure out why your brain is biologically hardwired to make you feel like a failure and how to actually rewrite that code. We've got this fascinating stack of sources today, spanning psychological clinics, mindfulness centers, and even an ancient fable.
It's a really diverse set of material, and our mission today is basically to decode this evolutionary trap of comparing ourselves to others. We're going to deconstruct why chasing, self-esteem actually makes you miserable.
Which is wild to me, by the way.
I know, it goes against everything we're taught. But we'll explore this surprising, highly active alternative called fierce self-compassion. And then we'll demystify the alphabet soup of modern therapy.
Yes, the alphabet soup. CBT, ACT, DBT, all of it.
Exactly. So you can understand the exact mechanics of how to rewire your mind when you just feel completely stuck.
Okay, let's unpack this right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Why do we care so much about what everyone else is doing? I mean, it feels like a massive glitch in human programming to just constantly measure ourselves against other people's highlight reels.
It does feel like a glitch, but to understand it, we actually have to look at the original code.
Okay.
So back in 1954, there was this psychologist, Leon Festinger, and he introduced social comparison theory. What's fascinating here is that sizing up others isn't some modern, personality flaw.
It's not just a social media thing.
Not at all. It's a primal survival mechanism. Like back in early human tribes, knowing your rank meant knowing if you got to eat. Yeah, or if you were going to be kicked out of the cave. We evaluate ourselves against others to gauge our safety, our resources, and, our standing in the group.
So we're essentially running prehistoric software in a modern world where the tribe is like a global internet of billions of people.
That's exactly it. It's a total mismatch. And the sources talk about this splitting into two very specific directions, upward and downward comparisons.
Okay, so upward and downward, what's the difference?
Well, they serve completely different functions, and they carry distinct risks. So upward comparison is when you look at someone wealthier, more successful, maybe more attractive.
Right.
From an evolutionary standpoint, that's meant to show you what is possible. It's designed to motivate you to improve your standing in the tribe.
But let's be real. Upward comparison on social media feels like running on a treadmill, where your neighbor just keeps turning up the speed.
Yes.
You are completely exhausted, your lungs are burning, but you never actually reach a destination.
That exhaustion is the exact result of an evolutionary drive just forced into overdrive. I mean, you are chasing a curated, filtered illusion that doesn't actually exist in nature.
Right, because people only post the good stuff.
Exactly. And then you have the inverse, which is downward comparison. This is looking at someone you perceive to be, worse off than you.
Ah, the classic, well, at least I didn't mess my life up as badly as that guy.
Exactly. And, it delivers a very quick hit of relief, but the mechanism behind it is actually really dangerous.
Why is it dangerous? It feels good in the moment.
Because it relies entirely on another person's misfortune to regulate your own anxiety. Over time, that habit severely erodes your capacity for empathy.
Oh, wow. Didn't think about that.
Yeah, you start subconsciously hoping others fail just to maintain your own fragile sense of security and, superiority.
That dynamic actually reminds me of this incredible fable from our sources, the parable of the crow.
Oh, I love this one.
It's so good. So the story goes that a crow is crying because he is just miserable being a plain black bird. He desperately wants to be a swan. He thinks the swan is the most beautiful, happiest bird alive.
Right.
So he flies to the swan, but the swan says, no, I'm just white and boring. The parrot is the happiest because it has so many brilliant colors.
The treadmill speeds up.
Exactly. The crow flies to the parrot, but the parrot says, I live in constant fear of being put in a cage because I'm so colorful. The peacock is clearly the happiest bird.
So he goes to the peacock.
Right. So the crow finally tracks down the peacock.
Yeah.
And where is the peacock? He's trapped in a zoo. Hundreds of people are staring at him, plucking his beautiful feathers. And the magnificent peacock looks at the crow and says, I just wish I could be a free crow.
It's such a powerful story. If we connect this to the bigger picture, that fable captures the endless, exhausting loop of the comparison trap perfectly.
Totally.
I mean, the peacock has the aesthetic beauty the crow desires, but lacks the one fundamental thing the crow takes for granted, which is freedom. And that loop is precisely why society's favorite cure for insecurity-building high self-esteem is fundamentally flawed.
Okay, that feels so counterintuitive to me.
I know.
Because we've been told our whole lives that the cure to feeling bad about ourselves is to build our self-esteem. You are special, you are the best, you can do anything. How is that a trap?
Well, Dr. Kristen Neff's research breaks down the mechanics of this beautifully. Building self-esteem relies on a psychological mechanism called the self-enhancement bias.
Self-enhancement bias. Okay.
Yeah, so to feel good under the self-esteem model, you have to genuinely believe you are, quote-unquote, above average. You have to enhance your own status above the people around you.
But mathematically, we cannot all be above average. That's just impossible.
Right, which creates a vicious, unwinnable cycle. To maintain that elevated status, you are forced to constantly compare yourself. And when you inevitably fail, or, when you just have a distinctly average Tuesday,
Like we all do.
exactly, your self-worth just plummets because the condition for your happiness being better than others has completely vanished.
So what's the alternative then?
Dr. Neff's work offers an alternative that bypasses the comparison trap entirely, and that is self-compassion. It fundamentally shifts the goal. The goal is no longer about being better than anyone else. The goal is simply being human.
So if the goal is just being human, how do we actually practice that? Because saying, just be nice to yourself feels a little vague.
It does sound a bit soft, yeah.
Yeah. The sources mention 3 specific pillars, but I want to understand how they actually operate when someone is in a real downward spiral.
Okay, let's look at a real scenario. Say you completely bomb a major presentation at work.
The ultimate nightmare.
Right. So the first pillar is self-kindness, which actively replaces self-judgment.
Okay.
The instinctive reaction for most people is to let their inner critic take the wheel and scream, "You're an idiot, you ruined your career, everyone thinks you're a joke."
Oh, I've definitely heard that voice.
We all have. So self-kindness intercepts that reflex. You consciously adopt the tone you would use with a good friend who just bombed their presentation.
But if step 1 is just being kind to myself, that still feels a bit, I don't know, incomplete. Like, how do I keep from just throwing a pity party and isolating myself in my failure?
That brings us to the second pillar, which is common humanity. This counteracts isolation. When we fail, our brain tricks us into thinking we are the only person on Earth who feels this incompetent.
Right, like everyone else has it totally figured out.
Exactly. Common humanity is the deliberate recognition that failure, embarrassment, and suffering are universal. You aren't uniquely broken, you are just experiencing a completely standard human moment.
I like that, a standard human moment. And what bridges those 2 things together? What's the third pillar?
Mindfulness. This is the opposite of over-identification. So when you bomb that presentation, mindfulness allows you to notice the feeling of failure without letting it consume your entire identity.
So it's separating the event from who I am.
Yes. You observe the thought, "I failed at that task," and prevent it from mutating into, "I am a failure as a human being."
There's actually a physical exercise in the sources for this that blew my mind because of the biology behind it.
Oh, the hand on the heart.
Yes. When you are spiraling, you just place a firm hand over your heart. I always thought stuff like that was just new age fluff, but there's an actual physical mechanism at play, isn't there?
The mechanism is entirely neurological. The physical pressure and warmth on your chest stimulate the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve, right.
Yeah, which is a major component of your parasympathetic nervous system. It physically forces your heart rate to slow down.
That is so cool.
It really is.
Yeah.
You are hacking your biology to signal safety to your brain, mimicking the soothing, regulating feeling of physical touch from another person.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, but also where I genuinely struggle.
Let's hear it.
Wait, I have to ask this because I wrestle with it all the time. If I just accept my flaws and tell myself, it's okay, you're only human, don't I lose my edge?
Ah, yes.
Like, how do I ever get a promotion or break a bad habit or hold myself accountable if I'm constantly just letting myself off the hook?
This raises an important question, and I'm so glad you brought it up, because it is the single biggest misconception about self-compassion.
Really?
Yes. People assume it breeds passive complacency, like you're just giving up.
Yeah.
But Dr. Neff's research addresses this by dividing self-compassion into a yin and a yang.
Okay.
What we just discussed, the soothing, the hand on the heart, the acceptance, that's the yin, the tender side.
The parent comforting a crying child.
Exactly that. But then there is the yang, the fierce side of self-compassion. Think of the mama bear protecting her cubs.
Oh, mama bear energy. I like that.
Right. Fierce self-compassion is the highly active energy required to alleviate your own suffering. It's the strength to draw a hard boundary with a toxic boss. It's the courage to say no. It's the drive to fight injustice and hold yourself strictly accountable.
So it's the difference between saying, I'm exhausted, I'm going to take a nap without feeling guilty.
Which is tender self-compassion.
Right. Versus saying, I'm drinking way too much, it's destroying my health, and because I actually care about my future, I am going to stop.
You hit the nail on the head. You aren't changing your behavior because you hate yourself and think you're unacceptable. You're changing your behavior because you value yourself enough to demand a better life.
That is a massive perspective shift.
It is. The source material uses a brilliant metaphor for this. If a herd of cattle is stampeding toward you, it's not the time for self-acceptance, it's time for action.
You don't just stand there mindfully observing the cows. You run.
Exactly. Fierce self-compassion is what motivates you to get out of the way of the stampede.
So if someone is completely frozen by fear and cannot access that mama bear energy, where do they even begin?
It's tough.
Because, just changing your behavior or running from the stampede sounds completely impossible when you're paralyzed by a massive wave of anxiety.
And that is the exact threshold where clinical frameworks become necessary. When your internal software is too corrupted to run the fierce self-compassion program on its own, you need structured tools to debug it.
Okay, so this brings us to the three heavyweights of modern evidence-based therapy: CBT, ACT, and DBT.
The alphabet soup.
The alphabet soup. Anyone who has ever looked for a therapist online has totally drowned in these acronyms.
Oh, absolutely. But the overarching shift in the psychological community today is no longer debating which of these is the absolute best.
Oh, it's nice.
No, it's about figuring out which specific mechanism is most relevant to the individual, like what specific type of gridlock is a person experiencing.
Okay, let's unpack these mechanisms. Let's start with the most famous one, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
So CBT is heavily influenced by Stoic philosophy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it is highly structured and logical. The core premise is that your thoughts create your feelings, which then drive your behaviors. So if you want to change the behavior, you have to change the thought.
Change the thought. Okay.
It is essentially debugging your mental software. You are looking for the logical error in the code, what therapists call cognitive distortions.
Give me a real-world scenario of how this actually plays out in a session. Like, what does that look like?
Okay, imagine you are terrified of public speaking. You have a meeting tomorrow, and your brain is just catastrophizing. I'm going to stutter, everyone will laugh, my boss will realize I'm incompetent, and I'll get fired.
That escalation happens so fast.
It does. Now, a CBT therapist won't just sit there and validate your feelings. They will put that thought on trial.
On trial.
Yes, they'll ask, where is the evidence that you will be fired for stuttering? Have you ever stuttered before and survived? You actively challenge the flawed logic, dismantle the distortion, and rewrite the thought to be more accurate.
So CBT is like going into the source code of your brain, finding the line that says public speaking equals instant death, and just rewriting it so the program runs smoothly.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Okay, but what happens when the logic is so loud and so relentless that arguing with it just exhausts you? Like, sometimes I can't logic my way out of it.
And that is exactly where ACT comes in, acceptance and commitment therapy.
ACT. And they actually pronounce it ACT.
Yeah, they pronounce it ACT. In ACT, the goal is completely different. The goal is not to change the thought.
Wait, really?
No. The goal is to change a relationship to the thought. It focuses on a mechanism called psychological flexibility.
Okay, what does psychological flexibility actually look like in practice? Because I have to be honest, that sounds a bit like corporate jargon.
Fair enough. Let's use an everyday example. It's 9 p.m. on a Friday. You get an email from your boss that just says, we need to talk first thing on Monday.
Oh, instant panic. My brain instantly generates the story. I'm getting fired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, CBT would have you analyze the evidence to prove you aren't getting fired.
Right.
But ACT recognizes that arguing with your brain at 9 p.m. on a Friday is a losing battle that will literally ruin your weekend.
It totally will.
Yeah.
So what does ACT do instead?
It creates distance, a process therapists call diffusion. Instead of jumping into the ring to wrestle the thought, you learn to say, okay, my brain is giving me the I'm getting fired story right now. That's a thought happening in my
You
head.
just acknowledge it.
You just watch it pass by like leaves on a stream. And then you commit to your values. You put the phone in a drawer and go back to watching a movie with your family, even while the anxiety is just kind of humming in the background.
I love that. Actually, if we use a radio analogy here, if your anxiety is a noisy radio, CBT is trying to change the station to something better.
Yes.
But ACT is just letting the static play in the background
Yes.
while you focus on reading a good book.
That is exactly it. You stop fighting the anxiety, accept its presence, and take action aligned with your values anyway.
Okay, so CBT rewrites the thought code. ACT changes how you interface with the thought.
Yeah.
What about DBT, dialectical behavior therapy?
So DBT was developed by the legendary Dr. Marshall Linehan, and it's rooted in Zen Buddhism. It is built on a dialectic, which is the balancing of two opposing truths: radical acceptance and a profound change.
Acceptance and change at the same time.
Right. And while CBT and ACT are very cognitive-like, they deal heavily with thoughts. DBT has these 4 distinct modules: mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotion regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. It is intensely focused on the physical body and stabilizing the nervous system.
Why would someone need that over the other two?
Because sometimes the anxiety escalates into sheer panic. If you are having a full-blown panic attack, trying to analyze your cognitive distortions is like trying to do algebra while your hair is on fire.
Oh, absolutely impossible.
You simply cannot access logic. So DBT teaches you to physically cool the system down first
How does it actually do that?
through profound physiological interventions. For example, a core DBT skill involves plunging your face into a bowl of ice water or holding an ice pack to your eyes and cheeks.
Wait, really? Literal ice water?
Oh, yes. It triggers a biological mechanism called the mammalian dive reflex.
The mammalian dive reflex. What is that?
When cold water hits your face, your brain basically thinks you are diving underwater. It automatically forces your heart rate to drop rapidly to conserve oxygen.
That is wild.
It physically short-circuits the panic attack before you even try to think your way out of it.
So going back to our radio analogy, DBT is learning how to fix the volume knob so the static doesn't literally blow out your speakers.
That is the ultimate analogy. You stabilize the hardware first so you can actually run the software updates later.
So what does this all mean for someone who wants to start therapy? How do they, or their therapist, actually know which of these 3 frameworks to pull off the shelf?
Well, clinicians use a decision matrix based on the presenting symptoms.
Okay.
If the anxiety is thought-heavy and driven by specific fears like social anxiety or panic cycles, that usually points to CBT.
Right.
If the client is paralyzed by chronic avoidance, perfectionism, or existential worry where fighting the thoughts just makes it worse, that points to ACT.
The leaves on a stream.
Exactly. And if the client experiences intense, rapid emotional spikes like going from 0 to 100 and feeling totally overwhelmed, that points to DBT. We have to cool the hardware first.
But, human beings are messy. I imagine people don't just fit perfectly into one of 3 distinct boxes.
Oh, they rarely do. The best modern therapists are highly integrative. They blend these modalities based on what a client's evolving needs are in that exact moment.
So they might mix and match?
Totally. They might teach you a DBT ice water skill to handle a panic attack on Tuesday, use CBT on Wednesday to unpack the specific fear that triggered it, and then use ACT on Thursday to help you commit to a long-term goal despite the lingering worry.
If the specific modality can shift that much, does it even matter which acronym a listener looks for when trying to find a therapist?
That brings us to the most crucial and, frankly, the most comforting finding in our sources. Extensive research shows that the single most important factor in the success of therapy is actually not the specific acronym or method used.
Wait, really? It's not the method?
No, it's the therapeutic relationship.
Meaning, shouldn't you advise our listener to prioritize finding a professional they simply click with, rather than obsessing over whether they practice CBT versus ACT?
Absolutely. That is the ultimate factor. Feeling understood, feeling respected, and feeling deeply safe with your therapist accounts for more healing than any specific technique.
Wow.
The techniques are just tools in a toolbox. But if you don't trust the person holding the tools, your brain will not allow the house to be built. Prioritize finding someone you simply click with. A good therapist will tailor the alphabet soup to fit exactly what you need.
We have covered so much ground today. I mean, we started by diagnosing that heavy feeling of inadequacy, tracing it back to our evolutionary survival instincts, and learning how to step off that exhausting social comparison treadmill.
It's a lot to process.
It is. We discovered that building self-esteem is actually a statistical trap, and that the real power lies in self-compassion. And not just the tender hand on the heart side, but that fierce mama bear energy that actually demands better for our lives.
And we also mapped out the mechanics of our mental frameworks. We learned how CBT debugs our thoughts, how ACT changes how we interface with those thoughts, and how DBT physically cools down our nervous system when the hardware overheats.
Exactly. So whether you are prepping for a really stressful meeting tomorrow, catching up on mental health trends, or honestly just trying to survive scrolling through your phone tonight without feeling terrible about yourself, you now have a real powerful mental map for navigating your inner world.
You do. And as we close out this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Let's hear it.
We spend so much energy trying to hide our flaws, the exact imperfections we constantly compare against the shiny, curated lives of others.
Yes.
But think about those flaws for a moment. What if those exact imperfections are actually the source of your common humanity? What if the very things that make you feel so inadequate are actually the only things that truly connect you to the rest of the world?